Good morning. My name is Josh Orr, and today I'd like to show you a presentation on the effects of high-intensity interval training versus continuous running and how they affect VO2 max in athletes. First, we're going to start with the background of the subject. While athletes are always looking for an upper edge due to each athlete being in their peak performance and able to compete with others on physical, mental, and any other level that an athlete may use during competition. They're always looking for an upper edge to get past the other athletes and help their team become successful during any sporting event. VO2 max has always been used to measure aerobic performance in athletes. While it may not seem important to some that don't perform at high levels in sports, it is very important to those who are in peak performance and elite athletes. Being able to increase your VO2 max will give that athlete the upper edge needed to be able to outlast their opponents during competition and win games for their teams. Next, we will discuss some problems that have come up during this study. There have been two main questions that have come up and have altered how this study has been performed. The first was to why increase VO2 max. The answer to that was stated earlier, and it will help athletes with their aerobic performance. As said, every athlete is looking for an upper edge or something to give them a boost during competitions to help increase their own performance and the performance of their team around them to outplay the other opponent and win competitions. An increase in VO2 max will increase the cardiovascular endurance of the athlete, making them able to perform longer during competition and again outperform the other opponent. The next question that was received was, is there further research needed? The answer to that is yes. Every research topic that I have found and every study that has been incorporated into this own study has shown very close results between the two training types. Some research studies have shown that high-intensity interval training was a more successful route when trying to increase VO2 max, while others showed that continuous running is very similar and does the exact same when trying to increase VO2 max as high-intensity interval training. Therefore, both types of training have had significant findings, but they have also been very similar, and there has not been a study or an amount of studies that have been able to draw a final conclusion of which type of training is more efficient. For this study, I had the research question and purpose of the study was to determine if 30 minutes of high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, improved running performance and VO2 max at a greater rate than 30 minutes of continuous running. This question came to me due to personal experiences and friends that have wanted to try running a half marathon or marathon, but were unsure of which training type will help them improve their results the most. My hypothesis with this study was that high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, will result in a greater improvement in VO2 max, while there will be no significant difference between continuous training and HIIT regarding overall performance. So the athlete may increase their VO2 max, but when it comes to the performance of running, there will be no overall difference between the two types of training. For this study, we had 50 participants that all volunteered and were in physically active shape. None of them have taken part in any high-intensity interval training in the past 6 months, and they have all willingly came to this study. There were males and females during the study, so as not to segregate, as well as the age range being from 19 to 26 years of age. During this study, the participants were blindly separated into two different groups, whether it was the high-intensity interval training group or the continuous running group. Both of these groups participated in 30-minute sessions twice a week, while the overall program lasted for approximately 6 months. During the study, both of the groups, the high-intensity interval training and the continuous running group, used the same instrument so as to not differ between the results. That instrument used was a standard treadmill. The treadmill was the choice instrument for this study due to the monitors being able to determine how fast and how high of an incline the athletes may go. So for the HIIT training group, they were able to monitor as well as differentiate the speed, incline, and anything else necessary for the HIIT training. For the continuous group, they were able to monitor the speed and incline for this continuous running group. Finally, we come to the discussion. As stated, the hypothesis was that HIIT training would result in a higher increase in VO2 max, and the results did confirm that the high-intensity interval training increased VO2 max more efficiently than continuous running. Although during this study, both groups produced significant results in increasing VO2 max, although HIIT training group was slightly higher. The research done in this study showed similar results to research done in prior studies, showing that more research does need to be done. And that brings me to my next point, where future research is needed. As stated earlier, this was one of the questions that came up prior to the study, and it was confirmed at the end of the study. Although in this study the conclusion was that HIIT training increased VO2 max more efficient, there were more studies prior to this study that showed different results. Within this study, there was no results that differentiated from other studies. That being said, there was no new findings in this study that was not found in prior studies already. Finally, we come to our conclusion, and as stated, there were no new findings done in this study from other studies, showing that the VO2 max and overall performance in studies such as this are the only findings that will be able to be shown. The results in this study were too close, as well as other studies, to confidently choose which type of training is more efficient. Some may say that it is HIIT or high-intensity interval training, while others may say it is continuous running. And there is also the third choice of both groups being able to perform and increase the VO2 max and overall performance at the same rate. There were some limitations during this study and could be a problem in future studies that may disrupt or alter the findings. The first was the participants' willingness to perform. This being said is showing that the duration of the study was too long, being 6 months, and the participants were losing interest in the study, as well as day-to-day performance. If the athlete came in slightly tired than the day before, they may not want to try their best or perform at their highest level, which may alter the study findings and disrupt the overall conclusion. The second one, as I touched on prior, is the study was too long. 6 months of this training while doing it two times a week was a bit much for the participants. The overall consensus at the end of the study was that a shorter time period, as well as an increase in overall trainings per week, would be more appropriate. The athletes that were in this study agreed that if the study lasted about 3 to 4 months while training 3 to 4 times a week, it would be much more appropriate and more withstandable for the athletes. I'd like to thank you for your time and listening to my presentation. I hope you learned a little bit more about VO2 max and the ways to increase it by using high-intensity interval training as well as continuous running. Thank you.